One Piece Chapter 1161, A Song of Love Bound Under a Hail of Arrows, explores the God Valley incident, an inescapable battlefield of nightmares. Roger and Rock's pirates infiltrate the island from different points, forcing an abrupt end to the manhunt competition. Meanwhile, Shoki's imprisonment turns into an execution attempt by Saint Summers, leading her to be saved by her beloved Dark King Rayleigh. The chapter begins by the narrator emphasizing how the island of God Valley now has become Ground Zero, a battlefield with the arrival of Roger and Rock's pirates, and in the light of this fact, the Marines try to get the Celestial Dragons out of the island as quickly as possible, but the entitled tyrannic lords only have eyes for the prize. They're dismissive of the fact that their existence is threatened by Zebek's presence. The prisoners on the island think this is their big break, a chance at escaping this madhouse. And you see the main players Roger, Zebek, and Garp seeking out their main objective. Roger wants to save Shoki, of course, but Zebek thinks of his wife Eris and his son Teach, who we don't see in this chapter. I'm expecting the next chapter to flesh out Eris and Zebek's relationship, and more importantly, the relationship Zebek had with Blackbeard the little time he was around him. And Garp is there just looking for Roger. Yep, that's Garp for you, I guess. And as the three heavy hitters make their appearance, we see Dragon running with his head down wearing a cape, with Shanks and Shamrock in his arms. He's looking to escape into one of the Navy ships docked on the island. He comes up to a section in the forest where there is some rumble, and he suspects it's pirates, and that's when he gets lasered in the shoulder by Saint Maffy, one of the god knights we saw in the last chapter. It looks like she's split up with the rest of the knights to find Garling's sons on the order of whoever is on the other side of this transponder snail, because they say that Garling would have killed him if his babies got lost. So she shoots Dragon and one of the babies just pop out of his hand. Saint Maffy, seeing the baby in person, is shocked that Garling could have had a kid with anyone, let alone somebody trying to kidnap those kids. And we get some of Dragon's inner monologue. Dragon views these babies as the only form of atonement for him being part of this twisted game. He reaches out for the baby, and Saint Maffy sheathes her sword, ready to land a finishing blow as Dragon accepts his fate. When suddenly, you see the trees and Maffy cut in half with a swift strike from something massive. Then you see Whitebeard and Big Mom bickering. Whitebeard says he wasn't aiming for Big Mom but an enemy, which was Maffy. But Big Mom calls him a liar, stating how she almost died down there. Dragon is at the bottom of this panel, looking up at all at the two behemoth pirates. This is the first time he sees the future emperors. It is just crazy how Ace's father figure Whitebeard saves Luffy's dad from dying without even him realizing. I love when our favorite characters and the essential characters in the story end up influencing one another in ways we would have never expected them or thought them to do. Shiki comes from behind echoing what Big Mom said, while Kaido says Big Mom lied to him. We don't get any explanation of why Kaido thinks Big Mom lied to him, because more pirates pop up trying to make a name for themselves by defeating the Rock's pirates. So Kaido, Shiki, Big Mom, and Whitebeard are busy taking these pirates down, while Saint Maffy holds on of the babies in her hand. Dragon, under all of this commotion, is looking to escape when he finds Shanks knocked out on the ground. It's interesting how whoever told Maffy to go retrieve the kids didn't mention that Garling had twins. I feel like that is an important piece of information that would need to disseminate if they're scared for their life about losing Garling's kids. Did they not know, or did Maffy forget? I don't get that. In the next page, we see Vice Admiral Garp take notice of this ruckus, and he senses that there's a big catch nearby, so he heads there. Come quietly, he says, as he hardens his fist and attacks the trio of Kaido, Big Mom, and Whitebeard. It's Garp! Run, or we'll be trapped forever, says Big Mom, terrified of this challenge of fighting Garp. Kaido, like we expect, is wondering why Big Mom and Whitebeard don't want to fight him, but they know better, so she says forget it. Big Mom calls her homies Zeus and Prometheus to her arms, and she fires up a named attack at Garp. Heavenly Fire Blitz. Garp takes the full brunt of the attack without dodging, as Dragon watches on aghast. Even Ivankov and Kuma notice a large explosion over the horizon, and in their eyes, it is the perfect time to make an escape. In the next page, we see the panel of the chapter, with Garp standing with his body shaded and hockey lightning emitting from his body. And he's like, is that all you got, Lin Lin? You can't even cook prime ribs with this. Oh my goodness, what an epic panel. Garp is really top one of all time. To all of you that thought Garp couldn't beat Primebeard or Zebek in his prime, what do you have to say for yourself now? Garp just made Whitebeard, Big Mom, and Kaido run with tails between their legs in fear and trepidation. They knew not to mess with Garp, even with the three of them being there, because it would be too much of a hassle and a waste of time. And that's just a little showcasing of my GOAT. Next, we see Saint Maffey, and she's like, that attack by Big Mom, that surely killed the kidnapper, right? She thinks it did. So she says the baby is safe and sound, to which the person on the line takes as the babies in plural, and the two of them are safe and sound. So he tells her to come back before Garling finds out she's gone. Dragon grabs Shanks, who's knocked out, and vows to at least save one of the brothers. And this is crazy when you consider that this baby could have been Shamrock instead of Shanks. Imagine if Shanks grew up with Garling instead of Roger. How different would he have turned out? I think he would be exactly how Shamrock is right now. Getting bad influence from the Celestial Dragons can only turn you into one of their own. And I like how Oda is playing with his brother in different circumstances, because it is a reflection of human society in general. People under good influences typically turn out to be good, and people in not so good situations turn out to be just that. In the next page, we see a Marine officer explaining to his team how the two pirate groups have infiltrated the island, with the Rocks pirates coming from the southeast and the Roger pirates coming from the northwest. At the center point are all the Marines who will be sandwiched in between these elite pirate groups. Remember, a lot of treasure resides in this island at this point, so the Marines have to be standby guarding it from any pirates, and the greatest treasure of them all is Shaki. We see a few members of the Rocks Pirates, Kyo, Gloria, Sashiki, and Captain John, rushing onwards to get to Shaki, and that's when we switch over to where Shaki is held. Saint Summers has come back to check if Shaki has been escorted out of her holding place, because if the two notorious pirate groups are on God Valley to rescue Shaki, then the smart thing will be to move Shaki out of this island. Celestial Dragons had planned to escort her out safely, but Shaki had other plans. Summers comes back to find that Shaki has taken out all the other guards in the room, and being the misogynist that he is, he hates to see it. He hates to see her value her worth, so he slaps her. Shaki kicks him in retaliation, and Summers reacts by beating her leg with a club. Ouch, that looked painful. Now what Summers is saying is that Shaki's high value and worth led the manhunt competition to end on short notice, and he knows that Garling intends to make her his wife, so her being alive is not worthwhile to his emotions. He thinks that killing Shaki right here and now tug at people's hearts the most, justifying the act, saying how it would be the most emotional outcome. Roger and Zebek have come so far with their enemy crew, Zebek knowingly walking into a trap, but when they get here, they'll only find their beloved slaughtered, he says. Summers yearns to see their reaction to Shaki's death. Then we see a random clash, the randomest of clashes between Roger and Whitebeard, as you see Black Lightning, the representation of Haki, oozing from that area. Now I don't know why we have this clash at this moment. It doesn't make much sense having Whitebeard and Roger fight when they both want to save Shaki and leave. I know they're great rivals, but knowing their character and how they are, would they really want to fight on God Valley? At least save Shaki first. Get the God Knights out. Like, what was the purpose of this panel? It felt so out of place. But I guess Oda thinks he's obligated to show these two together whenever it's possible. Next, we see the Roger and Rocks pirate groups fight, and they yell that they're only there for Shaki. But now Roger is realizing that he can't get to Shaki in time while he's clashing with Whitebeard. So he tells Rayleigh that he must go, and of course Rayleigh has been gearing up to save her with or without Roger's permission. We see a small panel of Rayleigh leaping up with a sword in his right hand. He looks like Zoro in this shot, especially with the pencil lines and the shading. It's done very intentional by Oda, I think, and you will see what I'm talking about towards the end of the chapter. Summers continues to mock Shaki, highlighting that Roger and his crew are just right outside, rushing in to save her, but they'll be just a second too late. And one of the lackeys there tries to tell him that St. Garling would not approve of Summers trying to kill Shaki. But Summers just tells him to keep quiet. If they don't say anything, then he will never find out. Summers plans to take out Shaki and say it was an accident. Summers takes pleasure in crushing Shaki's hopes of being saved like in fairy tales. He says this is anything but. Summers prepares to strike with his thorn club, and that's when the Dark King Rayleigh appears. He vows to put flowers on Summers' grave to send him off, and strikes him with a named attack, Spider Lily Steel, which sends Summers flying into the wall. Rayleigh has finally done it. He's come to save his girl Shaki. Shaki cries out in tears as they embrace each other, each with teary eyes. It's a touching moment to see their relationship highlighted here. It's funny though how there was this grand competition, almost a wild chase, a race to see who could save Shaki. The Rocks Pirates, being the ones that hosted Shaki's bar for so long, would have loved to get her back. Of course, we know how Roger feels about her. But in the end, it is Rayleigh, and it was always gonna be Rayleigh who won this treasure. But now that Shaki's recovered, it's time for the actual treasure hunting to begin. And that's how the chapter ends, with Roger and Scopper saying, "Can we just move on?" as they're heartbroken. And look at Rayleigh in this last page, he looks so much like Zoro, it's uncanny. It's like Oda forgot he was drawing Rayleigh here and just drew Zoro with glasses, long hair, and a goatee. Tell me I'm not the only one that sees this. Anyways, that is the end of the chapter. It was mostly about saving Shaki and from the viewpoint of the Roger Pirates. The next chapters should be more Rock-centric, exploring his wife and son and their relationship, how he ultimately ends up going against Garp and Roger together. Exciting times ahead. Guys, what did you think about this chapter? Did you like it? Did you not? Let me know your thoughts on this flashback so far in the comments below. Like, subscribe, turn the bell notification on for the latest uploads, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.